Here are the 3 levels to skill acquisition as an entrepreneur. So, as an entrepreneur, your greatest asset is time. Because with time, you can duplicate so many other things, such as money, such as employees, right? A lot of different things, right? Even systems that you're going to create. It's important that you know how to manage your time and that you charge for it adequately. Because if not, you're going to find yourself running a rat race. And that rat race may actually be worse than a rat race that maybe you just escaped working your W 2. And there's nothing wrong with working a W 2. I know a lot of people actually work with a lot of W 2s who make a lot of money, make more money than some of my clients who are actually entrepreneurs. And they do it in less time because once their 40 hours are up for the week, they're done. So there's pros and cons to both. And I don't want you guys to think that this is just for entrepreneurs or that entrepreneurship is the greatest thing ever and that W-2 workers are is not a great thing. Okay, I want to make sure I say that clearly. So in this episode, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over the 3 levels of skill acquisition as an entrepreneur. So that way you know how to gain your next skill. Because right now you're in a space where the more skills you attain, the more money you have the potential of making. I believe it was Jim Rohn. He said to work on yourself more than you work on your job. And he also said something along the lines of the more that your personal development increases, the more your personal bank account increases. And that's something that I truly, truly believe. So without further ado, let's get into the first level of skill acquisition. So the first level of skill acquisition, and you may have heard of this, but it's do it yourself. This is something where a lot of people do when they're trying to save money, essentially, right? They may not value as much time as they do the money. So they're like, you know what? I'll fork over the time so that I can save my money. And this is something that I did early on in my entrepreneurship career. What I did was I got a lot of books, went to a lot of conferences, and instead of joining high ticket programs or hiring people to do jobs for me, I decided, you know what, let me do it myself and then take the money that I made from that and then essentially upgrade the level that I was acquiring skills. Okay. So at this level, you're reading books, you're taking courses, you're going to conferences, right? Like these are the things that you're doing. And the pros, as I mentioned, is that you get to save money. It's going to cost you time, but that time you can get back in the future if you're going to invest the money that you've made. Now, here's the pros to, or the cons to this, if you will. So the cons, as you can imagine, that it takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time, which is again something I said is very valuable as an entrepreneur. But here's something else that is a con. If you do not have a work ethic, if you do not have strong discipline, you may find yourself starting something new but not finishing it. And that's something that people who are choosing to do it yourself struggle with. You know, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and as you know, I go to a lot of these events, these conferences, and there's a common theme that they talk about that I want to share with you. And that common theme is that the current plan that you're on, right, the do-it-yourself plan, if you're not careful, that plan would take you 100 years to complete. And if you're already, let's say, 20 or 30, right, and there hasn't been anything created by Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, there's a good chance you may not see some of your dreams come to fruition. And this is something that I also see, unfortunately, with a few of my clients, right? I have clients sometimes who will believe that they can just do things themselves and not hire someone after I've given them advice. And who knows, I may be the person that they're hiring. So that's a great start. But I've seen clients in the past who have said things like, hey, it just costs too much, right? I'm gonna try to figure it out myself. Because sometimes they may not be able to afford my fees, right? Especially if they're paying out of pocket. And in my mind, I always think to myself, well, how much is your mental health worth? How much is your personal development worth? How much is your personal relationships, your career, your marriage, like whatever it is, like how much is that worth to you? Because what I've seen to be true is that people will spend a lot of money on things like vacations and leisure activities and things that make them feel good. But when it comes to making that same investment for themselves, right, for their own mindset, their own mental health, their own business, their own dreams, that is where they fall short. And they start to alligator arm it, if you will, when it comes to paying for these things. So that's always a question I love to ask people when they're giving me the objections, such as, this costs too much, right? And I'm like, well, how much is your mental health worth? What's the most valuable thing that you have? What's the most valuable part of your body, right? To this day, I've never heard of someone doing a brain transplant, right? I may be wrong, but I've never heard of someone doing a brain transplant. We've even heard of heart transplants, right? So you can get a new heart, but can you get a new mind, right? No, right? Not in the physical sense, but definitely in the metaphor sense, right? And that's what I'm offering these people. Because if you are able to attack these goals, these problems, these tasks with a new and improved mindset, there's a good chance you're going to have different outcomes. And again, all of this is something that you have to be wary about when you're choosing the do-it-yourself route, if you will. Now, the second level to skill acquisition is do it with you, right? Do it with you, not do it yourself, but do it with you. And this is something that I absolutely love. And the reason why is because when I find that I have a framework that I'm following and a coach or someone that I can ask questions, I have enough within myself, enough discipline within myself to follow the steps and learn the steps to where I could possibly get to a point where now I don't even need their coaching because I have the skills and I've acquired it. But the beautiful thing about acquiring a skill, especially acquiring it quickly, is that now you can turn around and you can teach that skill to other people who do not know this skill. Or you could take the skill and absolutely dominate the people who are still trying to learn the skill. I'll give you an example. So with AI and all these new things that are coming out, if you took time to hire a coach to teach you which AI systems you actually need to optimize your YouTube channel, there's a high probability that you're going to crush and outperform other people who are not using AI because they're too afraid of it or they're trying to learn it on their own, right? And that's just an example. I'll give you another one. Let's take something like real estate. By having a coach and someone to teach you a new real estate plan, new real estate method, right? Or maybe they teach you a new way to find funding to actually get into the real estate. By doing that, you can outpace everybody else who is still learning how to get into the real estate game. And if you know anything about real estate, time is of the essence. And we know that to be true, especially with all the inflation that happened with COVID. So think about this, right? Think about this. I love these examples. So let's say you started thinking about real estate in 2016, but you've been trying to do it yourself, reading the books, going to the conferences, finding everything that you can on Google, but you never hired someone to help you. And as a result, you procrastinated and you started to wait years and years and years before you actually got into the game. And then bam, COVID happens. And when COVID happened, as we know, all the prices went up, inflation went up, and that house that may have cost $200,000 or $300,000 is worth $500,000 or $600,000. And now you're out of market, right? You find that your funds, your budget doesn't fit the current market that you're in. But the people who did spend that money to hire a coach, they were probably able to capitalize on that market in 2019 or 2018 or at the very beginning of 2020. So January, February, right before COVID hit. And now they're reaping the rewards of it. So as I'm saying this, I want you guys to know that do it yourself is fine, especially if you're starting out. But when you can do it with someone who has a guided plan, right? A system, someone that you can call and ask questions with, they can supercharge that whole transition for you, that skill acquisition for you. So now you're able to go out there and execute and dominate everybody else that's in your field. Now, the pros to this I've already mentioned is that you get that speed, right? You get that guidance. Now, some of the cons to do it with you is that you may have a bad coach, and that's something that you have to be wary about. And one of the best things to be able to shift through if this is a good coach or not is being able to see, have they taken other people to the mountaintop that they're trying to take? So let's say you're finding a real estate coach. Let's stick with this example. And let's say this real estate coach has amassed $10 million in rental properties, but he hasn't done it with anybody else. That may be something you may be a little weary about. Now, $10 million is no sneeze. So depending on the investment, right, in terms of time and money, and even the guarantee that he's offering, maybe you still take him up on that offer. But if he's made it to 10 million and then he has 100 other students who's made it to 10 million, then maybe that is something that you should think about joining. So make sure you want to shift out and see who else has been to the mountaintop other than just him. And the last level of skill acquisition is to do it for you. Now, the do it for you method is not for everything and it's not for everyone. Because here's the thing, when it comes to something like, let's say, building your confidence, overcoming depression, those are things that you have to be a willing participant in. Even something like weight loss, there is a level of do it for you where you could have surgeries, right? And all these other new advanced healthcare things. But if you're not attacking the thing that's internal, right? So someone's weight may be a representation of how they feel about themselves, or maybe it's a form of bad habits that they have. If you do it for you, right? If you have someone just give you surgeries or whatever it is, and you don't attack the internal thing, right? There's a good chance that those problems may show up again, or it may show up in other areas. So to do it for you does have pros, but also has cons. And let's stick to the pros just for now and I get to the cons. So a biggest pro to the do it for you is that you get your time back. And by getting your time back, you can create other do it for you methods to where you're financially free. You're free of your time. You're able to duplicate systems. You're able to create multiple versions of yourself, almost like cloning, if you will, right? So if I were to go and train a bunch of other therapists how to grab other new clients and then provide them therapy, I could have them give me a percentage of that, right? So do it for you. They're doing the therapy for me, right? Even in my real estate journey, if you will, I've elected to actually have the do it for you method where I've actually hired people to go out, find a property, invest in it for me, and then give me the returns. And this has freed me from any anxiety that I may have had of going out there, finding the deals and trying to see like, does the numbers work, right? But there is some cons. And one of the biggest cons that I'm experiencing is that I have no control, right? I'm relying on them to actually know what they're doing and go and execute and bring me back the money and tell me, hey, things are good, we're fine, here's your check, right? And here's another thing. This is by far the highest level of investment. So the percentage that I'm gonna get back from this deal is on a 70-30 split, right? So they get 30% of the profit and I only get 70% versus the whole 100 if I were to do it myself. But this has allowed me to focus on my business, right? So now I'm able to get money in other ways. So there are pros to it, right? It's the biggest pro, and it's where a lot of entrepreneurs want to get to. It's the mountaintop of all entrepreneurship, right? Just have someone do it for you. But again, there are just certain things that people just can't do it for you. Now, some of the cons, as I mentioned, is that there's just certain things where if you have someone do it for you, you may be missing the benefits of actually doing it yourself, right? Or even in doing it with someone. And we want to make sure that we're not missing that. Now, another short-term cost is that, well, you have to pay more for it, right? And some people may not be in that journey of their entrepreneurship life or in their careers or wherever it is that they're at. So that is a con, right? Could be a potential con as well. And actually right now I have a good friend of mine. He's actually, in this whole entrepreneurship world, he's a business coach. And we met at a conference last year. And from us talking, he said he has a new goal in his business. And he says that his new goal is to have people build out funnels for him. So now he doesn't have to go and do the back end of things. And what that's going to allow him to do is now focus more so on the content piece and focusing more so on these live events that I think that he's pushing towards. Because now he can actually focus on getting traffic into the funnels and not have to worry about managing the funnels and split testing them and trying to make sure everything works, making sure that there's no bugs, if you will. So that is a big pro. And I think, again, that's where a lot of people are heading. So as I mentioned, there are 3 levels to skill acquisition. And as you can imagine, each level that you go up, so does the cost, right? The price is what I mean when I say cost, not the bad things, right? And actually one could say like, as you go up, the cost should actually go down. Because here's the thing, have you ever seen the bill for not chasing your dreams? Have you ever seen the bill of doing something wrong? It's very expensive. And in most cases, it's more expensive than the initial fee that you're paying to have someone do it with you or to do it for you. So I want you guys to think of that. I want you guys to have that type of investment mindset as you go out there and you're acquiring these new skills. Because again, as Jim Rome said, as your personal development increases, so does your bank account. And as your bank account increases, you can now hire out and grab new talent to actually help you build your dreams. Because I don't know too many people who are, whether it's 7 figures or making 8 figures, right? Even 9 figures, that are doing it by themselves. At some point, you got to have people to hire to help you out with a lot of these things. So as a reminder, the 3 levels are do it yourself, do it with someone, and then have someone to do it for you. Those are the 3 levels. And I want you guys to make sure that you're not just staying at the do-it-yourself level, because even though you're saving money, you're giving up time, which could actually add more money into your pockets. This is Coach Wells. Thank you for listening. And one question, why aren't you subscribed to this podcast? I'll see you later.